Why philosophy?
Why do I want to major in it? Why did I?
Why? Well, just why? I mean,
interested?
that's such a big interest of yours, and what was the reason behind it? You know?
I think it started when I got addicted to like dunking on my classmates in third grade who were hyper religious, and I would just like, because my dad is a militant atheist, and he kind of I was a one to be him in elementary school, so I was like, fuck you if you're evangelical Christian in like third grade. And but I didn't really know what I was saying. But then by like 6th or 7th grade, I was like, I haven't really thought about this for myself a whole lot. And so I did a lot of shower and introspection sessions, and my atheism was preserved throughout all of those. It only intensified actually. But I ended up thinking like, okay, so yeah, God is dead, but what does that mean for me in my life and finding purpose and meaning and order? And it means that the absence of a God means that there are none of those things. And that was my first foray into existential philosophy, and that was my original main interest. My main focus area in philosophy. There are a bunch of different like schools of philosophy, but I was really interested in like what is the meaning of life? How should I live my life? How should I do so morally? Is there an objective morality by which I can kind of structure my behavior? And then it started off with just me, like my dad telling me names like Nietzsche and Sartre, and then I would just Google them and like go on Google Images and like look for deep quotes. And then by like midway through high school, I was actually like reading stuff and just watching whatever like videos on YouTube I could by like lecturers or professors to like, yeah.
When you say your dad is a militant atheist.
Yeah, it's just like a very cynical, hardcore atheist. Like you don't just not believe in God, you're like anti-believing in God. You think that organized religion in general is dangerous and dogmatic and harmful. So you're like, it's not just a neutral position, like you adopt an anti stance towards it.
Do you celebrate Christmas?
We do in our household, which is funny. My mom is much more like chill. She, we'll talk about how
that's interesting.
She has like spiritual experiences where she like communes with her dead dad and stuff, and it's like, I'm not one to tell her that all that's bullshit. It may not be bullshit. I'm actually very like, as I've progressed intellectually and emotionally, I've become much more open to the idea of like there being some spiritual, supernatural, non-physical dimension to the cosmos. But do I think that any book, any sacred scripture that humanity has written perfectly details what that force is? No, I don't like that. It's an unknowable, and I personally have not.
So
even like that's called deism, basically, which is like the idea that there is something more out there, but it's kind of impossible for us to know what it is. And I'm down with those people because that's not dogmatic, right? You're not saying I claim to know the mind of that entity. You just are saying that it might exist. So I don't. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Scientology?
Dude, L. Ron Hubbard, holy fucking shit, that man. So he started off as a science fiction writer, super prolific, right? Like more prolific than Stephen King.
The guy who like started Scientology.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He was the main dude. I watched a whole HBO documentary about this, Going Clear, Scientology and the Prison of Belief. I think that's what it's called. It's fucking amazing, frightening though, incredibly disturbing. Yeah, but he tells a story of this guy who is like, he starts off as this incredibly prolific science fiction writer, and he was writing back in the day where like you were getting paid pennies for each page, right? Wow. So he was just like going off, right? And eventually he made a name for himself and did well, got a wife and kids, and then I forgot how he went from like that to cult leader, but basically like in between he basically took his fucking like science fiction books and used that for the scriptures of Scientology. So like if you
literally science fiction.
Yeah, it's literally it's straight up. And he would there was this whole like scene in the documentary where he kidnapped his wife's baby after they divorced, like right after they divorced, and then flew somewhere with it and
With it.
he would I forgot the gender. The wife, and he would call the wife like after a week and say that I killed it. And then the next day he would say, just kidding. And then he would do this like super horrific psychological torture. And, but for some reason, like he was just one of those people that could have like attract them, just people in need and in need of hope. And then just, exactly. Like make a fucking cult. And like, it was, he had this boat where he had like basically people doing slave labor for him but like willingly doing so. Like you could take a whole like sociology class on that shit, dude. It's fascinating.
It's just like bizarre. Like it's just And people like believe it too. And it's mostly people who don't have much else to believe in too. Like I guess
exactly. You prey on the vulnerable, those in need of hope or kind of catharsis or some like that's and everyone in that fucking who is the guy, the Kool-Aid dude, Jim Johnson. No, he like had this whole cult and then. He was like, drink this Kool-Aid and we'll all kind of ascend. And then they all die.
The guy who killed all the people out in the forest or whatever.
Yeah.
Holy crap. So that's interesting. Like philosophy started for you with religion. Like that was kind of, it was like the idea that, whoa, religion's kind of whack. What is like your goal, I guess, going forward with philosophy? Because it's like it's a really like broad major, right? So it's like there's much. So
one of the more popular arenas of philosophical thought is like aesthetics, which is what is beautiful, what constitutes beauty, why do we disagree about art, and why we think this painting is good or bad. Can we ever have objective standards kind of for measuring a thing's beauty? You have metaphysics, which is like, is this table real? Am I real? Are you real?
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that must drive people
like,
insane.
No,
Holy crap.
And that's where some people are just like, if you were to like seriously contemplate any of those questions for more than 5 minutes, you would like short circuit because it's like, what the fuck. Yeah. But there are a whole lot of, and I don't really know where I want to go or what I want to do with it, because all of the most popular areas of philosophy right now, and everything that all the PhD candidates are researching and shit is like, aesthetics, moral philosophy. Moral philosophy is another one, which is like basically just political philosophy. What's right and wrong? How do we manage big groups of people? Oh, those are all popular ones, and those are all super cool. But it's like, okay, do I just kind of insulate myself with all of this super abstract stuff that's fun and cool and interesting and stimulating to think about, but really not applicable at all to only in theory is it applicable, right? The questions themselves are like basically only, a lot of people view philosophy as like, a lot of people will do it who are pre-law or pre-business, right? And basically their rationale is, okay, I don't give a fuck if I'm asking, is that cardboard house real? Yeah. You know what I mean? Is it in front of me? But the logic and the means by which I kind of go about answering that question is valuable, because philosophy is more valued for the approach rather than the content, right? It's like you learn how to argue, you learn how to think, right? And that's very a high value area for lawyers and business people.
Even filmmakers and stuff like that,
No, exactly.
It's very broad, which is crazy.
Exactly, which is cool. Yeah. And it's a good way to entice people to like do philosophy, but also like I kind of care about the content, right? Because like I care about like okay, I get it. Like we should be careful about how we go about answering these questions, but I care about the questions we're answering too, and I want us to see some value in them beyond just teaching us to think, right?
We were talking the other day, and it was like, it's like something really interesting about philosophy is trying to get it to more people, like trying to get more people to contemplate questions, which I don't think many people think about,
Yeah, exactly.
Especially like in high school, not many people are contemplating philosophy on a daily basis, which you don't need to, but it's cool to have like an understanding of basics and kind of like thought questions and stuff like that. But
exactly. And like, I'm down with marketing it to people as like, it teaches you how to think and reason. And that's awesome. But I also think that there is some inherent value in just thinking about those questions, right? Because it's like, we don't like, maybe this cardboard box like is not there in front of me, and that's kind of cool. And like, just getting at the weirdness of our existence and the absurdity of it is I think something to be valued in and of itself. Which is why I take issue with all the pre-law and pre-business people in my major, because they're just like, oh, I'm just using this as like
a way to get better for just this like thing that has nothing really
this
to
niche
do
area.
with
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting too, like it can help people find fulfillment, even though it might bring a sense of like emptiness. Does that
No,
mean
yeah. Absolutely. Like, I've just gotten more confused. No, I've never.
Yeah.
I've only like. Usually you want to like, okay, I'm embarking on this intellectual journey, and I'm gonna grow slightly more stable, kind of mentally with each step I take. But it's been the exact opposite, right? You just grow in more like you come to occupy ever more precarious positions, and intellectually speaking, and it's like, and eventually I'm in the process of just embracing that state of, I don't know, like, and just being comfortable there. Because if you don't do that and you can't come to terms with it, then it is very easy to descend into this vortex of nihilism and not feel good at all. And so, but my goals, I guess, right now are basically in taking philosophical traditions and applying them to contemporary conditions and society, and postmodern philosophy, continental theory. Those areas of philosophy are the most interesting to me right now, and they're kind of doing what I just described. But unfortunately, the program at UC Berkeley is much more. So they're kind of two. You have like your analytic school of philosophy and your continental school of thought. Now that division is kind of arbitrary and meaningless, but somewhat useful because they are distinct a little bit. Like I went to my ancient philosophy professor's office hours and asked him about that distinction, and he was like, yeah, I try to read some continental stuff, and it's just like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? And I like analytics much better because it's so much easier to follow, and like I can understand the argument being made, and it's more practical. And I get that because, and that's kind of what the division is based off of. Analytic is very, very structured and logical, whereas continental is more abstract.
Can
and
you give like examples to questions for both, or just like a simple?
That's actually a really, really good point. I asked, like, is there a difference in the questions being asked in each school? Yeah. And he was like, no, they basically address the same questions.
Just with a different mindset of coming up with the answer.
Exactly.
Well, answer. There's not really an answer. But
exactly.
Yeah. Huh.
So it's basically like, would you rather read a very like academic, thoroughly structured like ABC argument about whether or not language is whether or not meaning in language is arbitrary? That's the question, right? Or would you rather read a paper that's more loose and kind of weird and uses a lot of metaphor and is almost kind of poetry-like in some areas that addresses the same exact question about language, right? So a lot of the questions they tackle are the same, but it's kind of how you prefer to attack it. Which one?
Dude, have you not decided yet? Like,
well, I mean, it's not like you declare like I'm this, but I find myself gravitating more towards thinkers who have been labeled continental.
Okay.
And what's interesting is that in my film and media theory class, which is super fun, we were reading a lot of continental theory. And I think the reason why that stuff is kind of sidelined in mainstream philosophy curriculum is because it's more. It delves into the realm of kind of cultural criticism and even sociology sometimes, but not really. Whereas it kind of applies philosophy directly to the world now, right? Which is like, you don't read a whole lot of books in English class that have just like came out like a week ago. You know what I mean?
No.
So it's kind of like that way in academia, right? Like if you're using philosophy to like look at a super modern phenomenon, then you might be able to read some of that philosophy in like a film and media class or a media studies class, but you're probably not going to find it in the philosophy department yet. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
That's interesting because it has to like cycle through after time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so let's shift a little bit, but still talking about philosophy. How have your, I guess, political views shifted after like divulging more into philosophy and everything that comes with that?
That's a good question. Originally, I kind of kept my interest in philosophy and my interest in politics separate. I grew up in a politically charged household. My dad is super progressive, as is my mom. So that's kind of the environment I grew up in, and I basically adopted everything that they told me without question, and I kind of kept those sentiments separate from my philosophical interests. But then the 2016 election happened, and first the Democratic primary happened.
Yeah.
And I am an avid Reddit user, and Reddit was rallying behind Bernie, and I was like, this guy seems super awesome. And I talked to my dad about him, and he was like, oh yeah, I've been acquainted with that guy for years. He's been doing awesome shit, and I think it's awesome he's running. And I'm like, oh cool. So I'm reading more about him. I'm really liking it, and then I see that he actually might have a chance at winning the primary. And I'm like, shit, he might get the Democratic nomination. And so I get pretty into it. I got like a shirt. I'm feeling like he's speaking to me, and all the other, not that I'm who he's speaking to. I'm not like some blue collar guy in Arkansas, who's struggling to feed a family of 5. I'm ridiculously privileged, but like coming from my background in a progressive household, like I really liked what he said, and reading more about the socioeconomic conditions of our country, I was like, this guy seems to really like have it down. And Hillary just seemed like more of the same. And I basically I didn't like pay attention much when I was like 8 to the economic crisis, so I had to read about this shit. But I was like, okay, reading about that span of my life in which I was like 4 to 12. I was like, okay, not a lot of great shit happened, and I don't want 4 more years of that. Yeah. So I think Bernie is kind of the way to go, and he might win. And then it wasn't just that he lost. It was that the primary was explicitly rigged against him, and I kind of watched that happen in real time. And then it was like news. Like you had Stephen Colbert, like quote verbatim. In an unprecedented show of bias, the DNC has totally like ousted him. You know what I mean? And like they directed more money towards Hillary's campaign.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. And I was like, what?
Because they think that they know who's gonna beat Trump the best, and they're doing it again now.
They're doing it again now. And they're doing it again now. Holy shit!
And it's
and
funny.
They doomed the fucking Democratic Party in the process, right?
Yeah. No, because it's like making people not trust the DNC, and then they move to Republican because they're sick of this shit.
Which is exactly what happened to me, except luckily I didn't go further right. Yeah. But exactly, I grew super disillusioned and was like, what the fuck is going on? I just kind of grew like cynical and was like, what the fuck? And then at the same time, sophomore year, my English teacher was teaching us a lot about postmodern philosophy and post-structuralism in particular, and all these really cool thinkers. And I was like, that stuff is really cool. So I started delving into them online. And then I realized that a lot of these guys were like explicitly political. They were, a lot of them were either within the Marxist tradition or some were not Marxist, but they were very leftist, you could call them, by today's standards. And I was like, that's interesting. You have, you know, it's postmodern philosophy is very, very politically charged. It's not, and it's not really. That's actually a mischaracterization. It is apolitical, I would say, but is stationed very much in opposition to, or not in opposition to, but is stationed critically towards the status quo, right? And it is only political insofar as it ruthlessly deconstructs everything in the culture and the world and the society we live in, right? And I perceived that and was like, well, that means it's, you know, I should be an anarcho-communist, like, you know what I mean? Because like, what was the culture we lived in, or we live in now? It's this neoliberal, late capitalist society characterized by rampant inequality and a bunch of other awful shit. And I was like, well, this is what they're criticizing and deconstructing. So that means it's bad, right? And so basically that was, and then I delved into these leftist circles on the internet, and I was basically radicalized from that at that point. And then I kind of merged my philosophy and philosophy interest and political interest into one. And and then since then I've kind of able to, no, sorry, go. Yeah.
No. Since then, what?
Or I was just gonna say, like, I've adopted a more nuanced. I've realized that it's more nuanced than just capitalism sucks.
I was just about to say, like, what are you?
Oh yeah, now. Yeah.
Like, what if you could, like, just in a couple words characterize what your political beliefs are? Where are you on the spectrum? Even though it's like kind of whack. Yeah.
I've made this joke in the past where someone will ask me the exact same question, and I'll be like, okay, you meet me for the first time, I'm progressive. As we get closer, I'm a leftist. And then as we get even closer, I'm a democratic socialist. As we get even closer, I'm a regular socialist. And then as we get like super, super close, I am a libertarian-socialist. And then when I'm just like, you know, whatever the fuck, I'm an anarcho-communist, which is kind of a joke. But like, I think a lot of I would say libertarian-socialist is where I'm at right now, which is basically, okay, so you have, you know, we're going to ignore both of the right quadrants on the political, you know, XY axis. You have like fucking Hitler over here and then like Blade Runner over here, right? Like this corporate dystopia and just alt-right fascism over here, right? And then over here you have top-down communism, right? Which was not the Soviet Union, nor is it China, nor has it ever been either one of those countries or any country ever, right? China right now and Russia in the past were, and right now are authoritarian state capitalist, right? They were never top-down communism. The ideas of Marx were never like actually implemented. But you have top-down managed communism, heavily regulated communism, right? There is a state and it's strong. Down here, you have bottom-up communism, in which there is either no state or a loose confederation of kind of city-states or communes, and yeah, that's like my pipe dream. That's my utopia. But I would say seriously libertarian socialist in that I am opposed to. I'm tempted to say anarchist because like, But I think it's useful to specify that because anarchism can be, you can have like right-wing anarcho-capitalism or left-wing anarcho-socialism, and I'm there. So I think it's useful to say libertarian-socialist because it indicates that I'm kind of anti-hierarchy, I'm anti-power, and I'm also anti-capitalism. So yeah, and that doesn't, that's not to say that I don't think that the government now can do good things. I think it absolutely can. I just think that it is hindered from doing all those things right now by all of the anti-democratic shit. That has the divide.
Just the fact that it's hard to work together. I think that's the biggest problem. It's just
Well, yeah,
hard to
but
work
like,
together.
I mean, there's a reason why that's the case, and it's because it's been polluted and corroded by corporate influence and
big PACs.
super PACs. Exactly.
Super PACs. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, no, it's totally.
So I do think that, you know, a loose governing body is totally compatible with my philosophy. It's just that it needs to be made much more democratic and directly democratic and purged of all of this, you know, neoliberal nonsense, as it were.
Where you go to school is like super liberal.
Oh yeah,
Like
Yeah.
Have you met any Republicans?
they're
And how are they doing? Are they okay?
there is an on-campus organization called Berkeley College Republicans. You see them around. They're tabling sometimes out on Sproul, which is like this plaza where everyone has to walk through it, or there are alternative entrances to campus, but most people walk through it to get to the main campus. And you have like a bunch of people just tabling there. A lot of them are just student clubs. Some are the crazies, the vagrants, you know, the religious people. And then you have the Berkeley College Republicans sometimes, and like 99% of the time you see them, it's like them surrounded by a bunch of other people shrieking at them. It's some shouting match. Yeah, I know, which is like, or sometimes it's actually like the crowd is chill, and then there's one person kind of like, and another person at the table behind the table like going at it, and those are kind of
that sucks. Yeah.
Well, no, like that. I feel like that's at least. It's better than, you know, like this crowd yelling at this guy behind a table.
Are you
know
talking
what I mean?
like there's one person in the crowd yelling at the Republican, or there's like a Republican yelling at the crowd? Wait.
There's one, like, either the entire crowd is yelling at the person behind the table, or there's one person from the crowd just debating the.
Okay, well, that's better. Yeah.
That's
yeah,
better.
Yeah. No, that's good.
But
I mean, yeah.
yeah. So, Jack, how dare you?
What's up, Trevor? What's up? Lucas and I are in the middle of podcasts.
Well, now.
Yeah, you're on the podcast. Wait, hold on. Say hi.
Let y'all know, Suburban
Oh God.
2020. Let's get it.
Thank you. That was Trevor. Anyways, okay, that's a good segue. Okay, I have this idea. I want to give you like philosophy fast questions, and you need to answer like yes or no, or
Super
like
briefly,
like
yeah.
literally you have no time to think.
Okay,
all right,
okay.
we're just gonna hit them. So it's like most of them are like yes or no, or you have to like yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. You ready? Set the clock. Whatever. Okay. Should we fear death?
No.
Is it more important to be respected or liked?
Both. Dead ass.
Okay. Does life require a purpose and a goal?
No.
Does fate exist?
I think you need to construct one, though, for yourself. Does
Okay.
fate exist? No.
Does fate exist? No. Does an ideal government exist?
No. Yeah, no.
Does life have a reason?
What?
Does life have a reason? Sorry.
Does, like,
Life have a, like, is there a purpose to life?
no.
Maybe that. Oh, yeah, that was already one. Are there limitations on free speech?
Ooh. No. No asterisk.
So no limitation on free speech, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay. Does free will exist?
No.
Does every event have a cause?
Yeah.
Is patriotism bad?
Yes.
Is the mind the same as the brain, or do we have souls?
I don't know. I'm thinking about that a lot lately.
Really?
Actually. Yeah.
That one?
That one stumps me.
Can you just... Okay, I'm going to give you 5 seconds. Is the mind the same as the brain, or do we have souls?
I mean,
Just what's your first instinct? What do you first think?
I mean, either we're entirely material beings,
Yeah.
and everything arises from, and consciousness is just an emergent property of neurons firing, or there is something intangible and immaterial within you that gives life to you and makes you you. Or maybe that thing that just makes you you is all of your past experiences and the influence they have on your psychology. And maybe you can have that essence within you, but that essence is just, everything that's happened to you and how it influences what happens in your brain. You know what I mean? So that maybe that's just the spark. So maybe there is a little flame of individuality within you, and maybe that flame is reconcilable with a purely material view of the universe. I don't know. That's interesting.
I know, I've always thought about it because I think I told you like the other day, when I think about like a person or when I think about myself, I think about more than just like me. I think of like everything, all my thoughts and everything, and like there's me, but then there's like me, and only I can see like the big version of myself, or like the soul. And it's like, how could is it when I die, is that just gone? My thoughts, like what I think about on a daily basis, how is that possible? Right?
Yeah.
How's it possible? But I don't know.
Exactly. Well, I mean, if things are purely physical, then it just ceases. Right? Things will stop working and you go away entirely.
That's it. And it literally won't matter at all. So like, for your question, should we fear death? I mean, no, either way, because it's like it happens to everyone. But it's interesting because it's like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on the whole like genetic expanding of life, stuff like that? Like in the future, how they're trying to like, or they probably will. People will probably live way longer because of like genetic genetic. You know what I'm saying? Or like robots a part of us, stuff like that, where we kind of like continue life.
Yeah. I feel that stuff has always scared me.
Really?
I mean, maybe this sounds reactionary and like neo-Luddite of me to say, but if I lived in a future in which like robotic enhancement of the body was possible, I would opt out hardcore. That I like.
No.
It scares me. Like, maybe it's my fear of that is entirely irrational, but I don't know. I think I don't think anyone would to address your like longevity question. I don't think anyone would want to live forever if they actually were given the opportunity to.
Really? I mean, there's got to be. Come on, there's 9 billion people out there. Like, there's got to be people who are like, okay, yes, I want to live forever.
Well, no, yeah, of course,
So, yeah.
but like after
I guess after like hundreds of years.
after
they're
like six when you're pushing 600, 700, it's like fuck, dude. What am I gonna do?
There's got to be like some philosopher or something that's talked about that.
Oh
It's
no,
like-
yeah,
I
that's
mean,
a
of course,
well-trodden
yeah,
area,
yeah.
I think, and there is the idea that like, having an end makes what preceded it meaningful.
Yeah.
Right, like a thing, a beginning and an end is necessary for
There's pressure.
the package to be pretty and nice.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's like there's an end to the story of a person's life, because every person has a story.
Exactly.
Whether it like ends on a right note or on a wrong note or whatever. I mean, it's the end.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of cool to think about that.
Yeah, Nietzsche
yeah.
had this whole metaphor where your life is this piece of music, and
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
it's actually hype. Yeah, you like there'll be crescendos and diminuendos and shit that just sounds like a cat running across a keyboard, and other shit that's super melodic and beautiful.
Yeah.
And he thought that all of that could be, even the cat on a keyboard and the diminuendos and shit, could be played gracefully, because when viewed as part of the larger whole, the larger piece that is your life, that has an end, then it can be
Then it's all
graceful
one thing.
and beautiful. Yeah.
So interesting.
Live your life with grace. A philosophy tube has a really, really fucking good video on this. He's
Philosophy
awesome.
too? Oh yeah.
He's great. He has a video on the meaning of life in Jordan Peterson. It slaps. You should watch it.
I will. Okay, I'm gonna totally switch topics. Okay. So like another thing I know about you is of course like drumming, right? So why did you get into drumming? It's like or tell people what you do, like drumming wise. I guess you drum.
Yeah, I play drums, mainly jazz drums. I was part of jazz band in 8th grade and all 4 years of high school. I had the opportunity to try out this first semester at college. I did not because I didn't want to. I was lazy mainly, and I wanted to just do academic stuff. But there are a lot of awesome informal student bands at Berkeley that I want to become involved in at one point. But yeah, prior to getting into jazz, I had taken lessons since like 3rd grade from this amazingly awesome dude named Jason Lewis at Music Village in Campbell. And I took lessons with him from 3rd grade till the end of senior year through summer. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, wow.
And so I just took lessons from him up until 6th grade, and then I continued to do so. But I also joined band at that point, and then he was like, "You should join, or you should partake in this jazz camp over the summer." In 6th grade, and I did that, and then he was like, "Oh, you should do more jazz because you seem to like it and are like not god awful at it." And I was like, "Okay." So I did more, and yeah, there
Jazz
you go.
is so interesting because it's like,
Yeah.
it's such a, I don't know. We talked about like just drum sets in general, and it's like, and this is kind of a cool like metaphor too. It's like when you only have a couple drums, like you kind of
What do you
might
do?
even sound
Yeah.
better.
Yeah,
than
exactly.
when you have like this whole like ridiculous drum set with like 20 cymbals and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Come on, what's the point? Like I don't know. I wonder if there's any. I guess you started drumming way before you got into like philosophy and all of this stuff, and you started thinking really, really critically.
Yeah.
But
Is there a connection?
but
Is that what you're
maybe,
asking?
maybe there is, you know? Like, I think drumming's a really unique instrument compared to everything else, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's true. I mean, it's entirely. I mean, you do have some tonal possibilities because, like, the high tom sounds higher than the low tom, which sounds lower in tone. But beyond that, you're basically you're operating solely on rhythm. So everything you do is either rhythmically interesting or not interesting at all.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I have thought like you think like, okay, so you have quarter notes and you have eighth notes and you have triplets and you have 16th notes and you have quarter note triplets and you have 32nd notes and all this other shit. And well, no, that's actually it. I think I just listed every possible note. But
the notes.
and there are variations on those, but like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
basically the core structure, and it's like those go into every possible, you know, time signature, chord or key what the fuck, F minor, whatever. I'm not like an expert in music theory. I only play drums, but like, you know what I mean? Like, so because that, like, by virtue of the fact that there are only like so many things you can do, like there has to be some like finite, like there's only so much you can do, and there's only so much you can play, right? Like you can't eventually, like, you know, there are only so many rhythms out there. There are only
That's
so many.
interesting.
There are only so many variations of the core, like
Yeah.
quarter note, half note, triplet, like structure that, you know, maybe, and you know, so yeah, and it's like, am I playing ever even come close to like, like, you know, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't practice nearly as much as I should have.
Yeah.
And so I could have done way more, right?
Yeah.
With I could have gotten so much better. So this, you know, just to qualify these statements I'm making, you know, there are way better drummers than me out there, but like, do even they at a certain point feel confined? I wonder that, because like there was obviously like way more for me to do and learn, right?
Yeah.
But for all the people who like were at that point that I never got to, like the Neil Pearts of the world, the Stuart Copelands, the fucking Joe Jones, like do they ever reach a point where they like a little tired or like feel as if they have kind of done a lot. You know what I mean? I don't know. Neil Peart just passed away, by the way. So
Drummer.
rest in peace.
What did he drum?
He was a drummer for Rush.
Oh, Rush. I have a vinyl of them. In the other
Oh,
yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's such a simple instrument at first glance, but once you like dive into it, it's like whoa. If you want to
Yeah.
go any more past the base level, it gets really, really, really difficult. Which is like almost like an analogy to philosophy. Like the more you get into philosophy, it's like it just gets difficult. You know, it's like.
Yeah.
I guess what's interesting about drumming though, like a total like flip flop compared to what you're studying is that like drumming is super, like you were saying, there are only a certain amount. There's only it's like very, maybe not like, I don't know. It's just there. This is what you can do with it, I guess. Like you can see
your limitations are very, very clearly defined from the get go, and that this is not to say that really, really good drummers are inferior musicians to really, really good sax players.
Oh no,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying that drumming is somehow simpler or easier. Like no, absolutely not. But what I'm saying is like exactly what you said. You
can see everything you can do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like,
which is interesting.
Yeah, because the saxophone there's like so many fucking fingering variations. It's like what the fuck. But with drums, it's like they're really not a whole lot. That's where it's like like you said, it's deceptively simple because there are
that's a good deceptively simple. That's a good thing. Okay, couple more questions and then we'll tie it up. So you just finished high school. Is there anything you would have changed about high school, about your experience?
No, I think I'm kind of against the whole idea of going back and altering things because I mean I'm like I've learned a lot as a result of what I've done and what's happened to me, and I wouldn't want to go back and prevent that stuff.
The learning from happening,
the learning from happening, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I guess I could go back and maybe I could go back with the goal of like doing more interesting things and doing more adventurous things. Because I guess if I had to go back, I would. Maybe I would do hella shit. Maybe I would go to that like random sleepover freshman year that I was like, nah, or like just do I think that's what looking back, I wish I had. I think I can say that. Like, I wish I had done this. I think there's a difference between saying, if I had the opportunity to go back, I would do this, and I wish I had done this, right? Because I'm glad that I didn't do it because now I can say that I've learned. From it,
that's.
But yeah,
because there's different pathways. Like
exactly.
There's not a specific. High school's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole different hour conversation.
Yeah. But I think overall, broadly, I would do more things that I said no to.
Yeah, that's good. Is there anything else you wanted to say? I think we covered a lot.
Yeah.
You think we'll ever get into like writing stories?
I love writing a lot, and we took creative writing together senior year when I was a senior. No, and that was a lot of fun. But I do think if there's a future for me in writing, it's in nonfiction.
Yeah.
But maybe you never know.
Yeah, you never know. That's like kind of your whole thing. It's like you don't know, you never know, but it's like it's cool. That was good. Thank you for coming.
Of course. Thank you.
Let's go drum it up.
Yeah, hell yeah.
All right.